You know, I think one of the things that I hear and I know is that having a bladder cancer diagnosis can be very scary. And I think that when you're told that you have bladder cancer, and this just happened to a longtime, very dear friend of mine, it can be really unnerving. And even somebody who's very smart and knows everything about everything can be overwhelmed by their diagnosis. And it is scary. You don't know because mostly you haven't heard about it before. Most people tell us that they had no idea they get cancer in your bladder until their doctor gives me the diagnosis. And so when they talk to you, your doctor talks to you, they tell you about the scary parts of what could happen and what the treatments might be like. And quite honestly, if somebody were gonna, just describe a cystoscopy to you, you'd think that was rather scary if you've never heard of it before. And generally, it's a journey that few people are really prepared for. But I want to walk you through the BCAN resources a little bit so that you understand that you're not alone. The BCAN is here and we can help. And we've got a lot of things that I hope make it easier. Ideally, I'd like to think that every person that's diagnosed with bladder cancer is introduced to BCAN by their healthcare providers right away. I know, unfortunately, that that is not always the case. So if your healthcare provider did not introduce you to BCAN, why don't you take a moment next time you go into the doctor and introduce your doctor to BCAN and let them know that we have resources to help others like you. So now that you found BCAN, we're here to help, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do to help you along your journey. And no matter where you are, maybe you're further along and you're a survivor, or perhaps you're somebody who's newly diagnosed, or maybe you're experiencing a common recurrence that can happen with bladder cancer, or perhaps disease progression. We've got a lot of different resources for you. And I think it's important to understand as you travel down this journey, one that we never wanted to be on that path, you're not alone. And so really looking at what our mission is all about, we're really here to provide education and support. We advocate and speak up on the federal and state level for those with the disease. And as Diane pointed out, we definitely work to fund research and make sure there is money available to change the paradigm and change the way what we know about bladder cancer and how to treat it. And it's really exciting. This is, as she said, a very exciting time because in the last 6 years, there has been a huge change in the amount of treatment options that are out there for patients across the spectrum of disease. So above all is raising awareness. And I think that that's really important. As Diane pointed out, she and John started BCAN back in 2005. And since that time, we have been growing and providing resources to help. We have a website. We have our bladder cancer basics and tips for caregivers. We do a lot all along the way to make sure that you have the information that you're looking for when you're looking for it. And so let me tell you a little bit about some of the different ways that we try to create resources for you. Everything from our awareness walks to our clinical trials dashboard and our new podcast. So this is always my first stop for people when you're looking for information about bladder cancer. And many of you probably found us by doing a search online. Our website is open 24/7. And once you go there, there is a wealth of resources. Everything from web pages with lots of approved content that has been supported by our scientific advisory board experts. We have almost 70 different experts around the country across the spectrum of disease in terms of medical oncology, urology, radiation oncology, nutrition, and even social scientists that are helping to contribute to the information that we share. So I always encourage people to stop at BCAN.org. Okay. Let me go to my next slide. And then we have our signature resources, Bladder Cancer Basics. It's changed a lot over the last couple of years. It's very much user-friendly, written in plain language, because sometimes when you're diagnosed with cancer, all you hear is the word cancer, and you can't really think much of anything else. So our Bladder Cancer Basics is a free resource. You can go to BCAN.org and download it as a digital copy. You can also request a print copy, and someone from the office will mail it to you. We have developed another piece to go along with that, and that was developed with a group of caregivers to help really put together some tips for caregivers, because bladder cancer has a lot of nuances that are a little different than other cancers. You might have recurrences. It can sometimes really require a lot of active surveillance, and caregivers have a big role to play, and we appreciate everything that you do, but we know sometimes that that journey and that aspect of being a caregiver for a bladder cancer patient can be stressful. So if you haven't already looked at our tips for caregiver, you can download one online or ask for us to send you one. We'd be happy to do that. I mentioned our expert videos, and Andrea mentioned that we started our treatment talks this year. They're a little bit different than our average webinar that we've been doing for years, in that we actually feature medical experts and patients to really give the technical aspect of what a treatment is all about, but then the lived experience of what is it like to go through different treatments. And we've got quite a few of them out already, and we have one coming up in November on using clinical trials as a treatment option. We have webinars about diagnosis, about research, about survivorship, many different programs throughout the year. We typically do about 10 webinars a year, and we record them. We write a written transcript of them, so you could print it out and carry it or share it with somebody if you want to. And you know, when you're on the live programs, you have a chance to ask the experts directly. So we hope that you'll join us for one of our future webinars. So one of the things I just want to point out, when you have one of those, oh my goodness moments, whenever it is, bladder cancer can be stressful, and we have answers for you on our website. So even if you wanted to just look at the videos that we have, when you go to BCAN.org/cancer expert videos, you'll see we've got a whole menu, things that deal with treatment or diagnosis, survivorship, even videos and recipes about nutrition. So there's something for you no matter what situation you're facing. And we're going to hear a little bit more from Mark's story about our special host, Rick Bangs, who is a patient advocate who's also very involved in the research community, and he was the perfect voice of Bladder Cancer Matters. And we're real excited, and we hope that you will listen to our podcast. You can download them from your iTunes store or your Google Play, or visit us on our website and get directly to the actual audio for the podcast. These are just two of the very popular topics. Dr. Ashish Kamat talks about cystectomy, and then we had a really wonderful program that featured an immunologist, Lila Walk-Coburn, and our board member and key advisor, Dr. Seth Lerner from Baylor, talking about the COVID-19 vaccine. We do a lot to raise awareness. As Rebecca is going to talk to you later, our walk site opened up. You can sign up at www.bcanwalk.org. We're looking for volunteers. If you're going to be in any one of the cities that we're going to be doing a live walk next year, we'd love for you to join us, and you can send an email to walk@beacon.org for more information. And sharing your story happens in a lot of different ways. We have stories that we've listed on our website, and you are welcome to go visit them and read them. I think it's really important to understand that you're not the only person, and your life and somebody else's life could be parallel. You might find some similarities. You might find some strength and encouragement. We also invite people to share their stories on patient and caregiver advisory boards. Many of our pharma partners are really looking to better understand the lived experience of a bladder cancer patient or a family member. And our Survivor to Survivor program really does, as Bernadette talked about, help to connect people who really have very important questions and they want to know what's it really like, for instance, to go through certain kinds of treatments. And they can talk to somebody who's been there, done that, who has a lot of things in common with them. So there's lots of different ways that you can share your story, and I hope that you get a little bit of strength from some of the stories that you see when we post them on our website. We even have some new video stories that we've been able to work with, which has been really exciting to be able to put some video out there. I'm the Director of Research and Advocacy, and it is really important to speak up for the whole bladder cancer community about issues that impact all of us. These are issues that happen on the national level as healthcare changes, and sometimes in the state level, when access to care might be in jeopardy. We can help speak out on that particular issue in your state, but we definitely need your voice to help us with that. And we'll be asking you to help in the future as we begin to advocate with the legislation that's coming up in 2022. We'll be posting our new legislative priorities in the next couple of weeks on our website. One of the things that we have that makes it, I think, a little bit easier for people that are looking for clinical trials is most people can find a clinical trial on the national website, clinicaltrials.gov, but sometimes it's a little bit like trying to get a sip of water from a fire hydrant. So we thought it was really important to take out only the bladder cancer trials that are open and recruiting, actually looking for participants. Because what's the point of finding a clinical trial if they don't want anybody to sign up for it, if they don't need anybody to sign up for it? So we have developed our own clinical trials dashboard where we get all of that information from clinicaltrials.gov, and we make it available in a very user-friendly format. And if you visit us at bcan.org/clinical trials, you can search by your disease diagnosis of non-muscle invasive or muscle invasive or advanced disease. And you can also search by your geographic place, your state, or perhaps maybe you have family that live in another state that you could visit if you wanted to be part of a clinical trial. Or sometimes you can limit just to your geographic location. So you have lots of options for searching for clinical trials. And I always encourage people to consider a clinical trial not as a last resort, oh my goodness, my doctor said there's nothing else, I have to go on a clinical trial, but consider it as a treatment option. And we have a treatment talk specifically focused on that coming up in November. So now let me open it up and see if anybody has any questions about how BCAN helps to guide you on your journey, to help you on your journey, to direct you on your journey. So let's see. Morgan, if you've been keeping up with the questions, if you see any that jump out, BCAN was highly recommended to my husband and I by a urologist, oncologist, and a nurse. As an oncology nurse, I was impressed. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you have found us, and I hope that we're helpful. In Colorado, a few days ago, a woman was denied her scheduled kidney transplant because she was not COVID vaccinated. I'm concerned bladder cancer patients could be refused treatment for the same reason. Should that begin to happen, would BCAN advocate on behalf of bladder cancer patients? Absolutely. And again, we'd have to go within the state guidelines. Obviously, the more people that are going to have vaccines, the less likely that there would be negative outcomes. And so I think that's something that we would definitely want to speak up about, but we have to go within those national and state guidelines.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, Stephanie, is that BCAN's position is that we always, and that means always, advocate on behalf of patients getting their treatments.
Yeah, and there's a good question. How is BCAN funded? Andrea, that's a question for you.
How is BCAN funded? Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
We are funded by individuals,
we can hear you.
Individuals, foundations, corporations, We're funded by the whole gamut. Yeah. That's how we're funded.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of our programming is supported by our industry partners. And then definitely our walk is a big fundraiser as well as awareness maker for us, and definitely contributions in many other ways. So if you're thinking about donating to a charity, we appreciate any support that you can give us to help us make sure that our resources are always available, that we're always open, and we're always able to provide everything free of charge to patients and their families.
We had a great question on whether we would be translating more of our resources into Spanish, Stephanie.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's really an initial thing that we've done. Our Bladder Cancer Basics is translated into Spanish, but because we don't get a huge number of requests in Spanish, it's only available in its digital copy. But we have our Get the Facts pages and a few other things, but we definitely hope to have more. We've just started adding Spanish language web pages, and we'll be announcing those sometime later this month. I know Mark has been working on updating some of our content specific to, making sure that there's more diverse language representation as well. And remember that it's really important, again, when you have a new diagnosis, it's sometimes best to get stuff in its simplest form first, because it can be pretty overwhelming when you're diagnosed with cancer. So we always have the plain language version, and then we try to layer that with additional information for those people who want to go a little bit further. Any other questions?
Yes, we had another question. What's the best way to connect with a counselor / support using the BCAN website?
Well, in terms of if you're looking for, well, I'm not sure what you mean by a counselor, but if you're looking for a talk with one of our survivor to survivors, it should all be on our website. The little magnifying glass in the corner, if you just type in the word survivor to survivor, it'll pop right up and get you right to that page. I don't have it memorized off the top of my head, but Morgan can drop that link in. Somebody can drop that link into the chat feature if you're ever looking to ask for a connection to one of our survivor to survivors. That's something that happens usually over the phone, and it's a great opportunity for you to talk to somebody who's gone through the journey that you're about to go on, and they will often provide, hey, these were the questions I wish I had asked my doctor, or these were the things and the people that I found were really helpful during my journey when I got to the hospital. Maybe it was the nurse practitioner, or maybe it was an appointment that they had with the registered nutritionist at the hospital. So there's lots of different things out there. What else is going on in the questions?
Andrea, there was a question about the percentages of our financial support.
Sure.
What percent is patient funded and what percent is not?
What percent? I'm not sure of your question. What do you mean patient funded?
Not patient funded. That was a slip up. I do apologize. What percent from pharma and what percent is raised from individuals?
I would say about 40% from pharma, and the other 60% would be individuals, foundations, things like that. Yeah, 60-40.
Okay.
Natalie put in a great thing in the chat about that, in that you can actually choose BCAN as your charity to support on Amazon Smile. It's really easy. You just go to smile.amazon.com and choose BCAN.
Yeah. You just have to add that onto your Amazon URL so that you're always shopping under that Smile thing, so that we get that little credit. I always feel good when I'm shopping on Amazon, and I know a small piece of that comes back to BCAN, which is also very exciting.
Absolutely. There's a really great question about 2022, whether our summit, this exact meeting, will have an online component as well as an in-person component, Stephanie.
That answer is yes. Andre can answer that too. That answer is absolutely. As of, because of COVID, we will never be the organization we were. There will always be a virtual component to almost everything that we're doing. because we want to include as many people as possible. So we like the person to person to feel good and touching and all that, but we will have a virtual component so that parts of our programming will be virtual, so that if people can't make it, they can get it this way or something like this.
Yeah, at the very least, the general sessions will definitely be broadcast. And remember, of course, we record all of our live programming, so we do make it available on our website so that if you missed it, or if you came in a little bit later, you can still go back, or if you have to leave early, you can still get the last session, which will be great. But we do have some really exciting things coming up for you today. Up next, we'll be actually really kind of working to give you some information about patient-reported outcomes research. And we've always had a research component tied to the Bladder Cancer Summit. In the very early years was just after we started our patient survey network, where we actually have a list of individuals who are interested in participating in bladder cancer surveys. And we did some studies that were really helping to kind of do what we call comparative effectiveness research, which would be better, which types of treatments would be better for patients from a patient perspective. And so we started with Dr. Angie Smith and Dr. John Gore coming in and helping individual groups to kind of sort through some of those and to prioritize some of these comparative effectiveness research studies. And then we moved on to find ways to help train people who are interested in research. And then we're now at a place where, because we always feel that patient input into research is really important, because of course they're the ones who are going to benefit from the research. This year, we're actually inviting all of you to workshop some ideas with researchers that are going to be for articles or a registry, or looking into some patient-reported outcomes research. So we will be taking a break in just a little bit, and when we get back, we will be hearing from Dr. Jennifer Taylor from Baylor University, who's going to introduce the concept of patient-reported outcomes research, or patient-centered research, before we invite you to join 5 different groups to really kind of weigh in on their ideas so that they can get good information in advance of starting their projects or their research. And then when we get back from that session, we have 3 leading experts from our scientific advisory board, chaired by Dr. Elizabeth Plimick, and she'll be joined by Dr. Jeannie Hoffman-Sensis from Johns Hopkins and Dr. Jennifer Taylor to really highlight the new developments and what's on the horizon for bladder cancer treatments, what gets them excited about coming to work every day. Because the bladder cancer field has changed, and it's really going exponentially faster, and things are being advanced and being approved, and it's very exciting. Because back a few years ago, you know, before I started at BCAN, the most recent big advance was BCG, and that was 40 years ago. So we really have come a long way. And we'll be talking about alternatives to BCG, because we're in still a global shortage of BCG. And that will be one of the things that the doctors will be talking about in that new development section. So Morgan, any other pertinent questions coming in the chat before we take a quick break?
Just in case you missed it, somebody asked how we could find those support groups, and we did drop the link in the chat box. You are welcome to connect with local support groups as well. We do know of quite a few throughout the country. We're always happy to connect you with the volunteers in our Survivor to Survivor group, but sometimes it's nice to know what's going on exactly in your area.
Sure. And a lot of those support groups, because of COVID, have had to go virtual. But Morgan's also going to talk a little bit late this afternoon about the various chapters that we have, because BCAN does have chapters around the country. We're not in every city or state. We'd love to be, but it definitely takes a lot of on-the-ground support and it needs to come from the volunteers. So if you're interested, you'll be able to talk to Morgan a little bit later about that, and she'll share some information about chapters and what they do and what is involved in starting a BCAN chapter. So we're going to definitely be talking about different kinds of diversions and what's happening in, like I said, in the science and the research with the doctors in the session after this next session. So if everybody's okay, if you no more burning questions, I think what I would like to do